Good morning, everyone. Well, I thought I'd do some Remembrance Day announcements. Remembrance Day is coming up. It's not too long from now. It is actually on Wednesday. So here is my area, and I'm just going to draw a quick juxtaposition, okay? Here it says, where can I celebrate Remembrance Day in Guelph, Waterloo region, Guelph? And Kitchener is the one I'm going to highlight. A small Remembrance Day service will be held at the Cenotaph in Memorial Park. However, only 25 people will be allowed, and celebrants must stand 2 meters apart. Back at the Legion, which will open at noon on November 11th following the ceremony, buffet food will not be served like it typically has every year. A maximum of 50 people are allowed inside the Legion and on the patio. Okay, going back to June 3rd, where the things were much less certain and we had much less data. Thousands turn up to Black Lives Matter rally in downtown Kitchener amid pandemic. So that's okay, but 25 people and social distancing and you know, our traditions and history go out the window. Man, it doesn't seem right? Here is a meme. I thought it was on topic and on point and apropos for our show. So it's the U.S. election and they're all happy over here, and Canadians are like, oh yay, Joe Biden. And then the pandemic, and then Canadian politics is at the bottom of the pool, right? Nobody cares. I think I retweeted it with like, we again, Jody Wilson-Raybould, SNC Lavalin. These are just words to you, Mark Norman. Nobody cares. Okay. Anyway, Canadians fawning over U.S. election results. I'll note, and I think I'm going to note as well a bit later. I think I have a tab for it, but I'll note before I get into this. The AP doesn't call elections. Sure, they can project winners based on whatever, but this is going to a court of some kind, I'm sure. Conrad Black will outline this a little bit better, actually, I think. But first, we're going to go through all this. Jason Kenney says, congratulations to President-elect Joe Biden and VP-elect Kamala Harris on the U.S. election, and to all of those elected this week to the United States Congress and Senate. My full statement. And here is Scott Moe. He says, our government looks forward to working with the new administration of President-elect Biden to strengthen Saskatchewan trade relationship with our largest trading partner and our greatest ally, the United States of America. I'm pretty sure that Barack Obama and Joe Biden, when he was VP, just ignored Canada. They didn't pay any attention to Canada at all. Here's Doug Ford. He says, congratulations to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Our economies and the livelihoods of many living on both sides of the border depend on one another. I look forward to continue building on Ontario's relationship with the United States. We all do better when we work together. Okay, here's Jagmeet Singh. Congratulations, President-elect Biden. As the Trump presidency comes to an end, I'm reminded of Jack's final words. This is just invoking a dead person who couldn't possibly comment on the current political zeitgeist, who couldn't make a coherent comment because they're dead and have been dead since, a long time now, isn't appropriate, in my opinion. But anyway, he invokes Jack Layton's words, and he says, love is better than anger, hope is better than fear, optimism is better than despair, so let us be loving, hopeful, and optimistic, and we'll change the world. This brand of loving, hopeful, and optimistic was different than the one that Jagmeet Singh is pushing. And now the hopeful, loving, and optimistic is mandatory, and if you don't have a grin, you're going to the gulag, comrade, right? Like, it's very different than it was in 2016. I fear that Jack Layton would be as concerned as a lot of us are on the lack of protection of our free speech and our civil liberties that has cropped up in this age of COVID. There are some serious questions that need answering. Here's Aaron O'Toole weighing in on Joe Biden. He says, congratulations to Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Canada and the U.S. have a historic alliance. Canada's conservatives will always work with the U.S. to advance our common values and close economic ties. And Justin Trudeau says, congratulations, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. Our two countries are close friends, partners, and allies. We share a relationship that's unique on the world stage. I'm really looking forward to working together and building on that with you both. Yeah. No. And the AP, the Associated Press, doesn't get to call the election. I don't remember President Gore. I don't remember him. I remember President Bush for 2 terms, right? I don't remember President Gore. So the AP doesn't get to call it, regardless of whether they publish the paper or they all of the news people call it, or if only some of the news people call it. And there are some serious questions about this election. And again, Conrad Black puts it in better detail. Apparently, Joe Biden is the favorite to win right now. He only needs one of the states to win, and Trump needs all of them and Pennsylvania, or all of them except for one and Pennsylvania. So Biden is the favorite if you believe the totals across the United States. But there are a bunch of places being audited, and I think that there's a lot more to come. But It hasn't dropped yet. And who knows? Who knows what's going to happen? Bush v. Gore is very similar to this situation. The counts, the recounts, the audits, and ultimately the Supreme Court giving Florida to Bush with 587 or 547 votes. Who knows, right? I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. And I think that it's kind of up in the air, right? It could change. Who knows, right? Like there's lots of stuff that could happen between now and the end of the counts, the end of the audits, the end of the litigation around this. But there is going to be litigation around this. So having the Associated Press call a winner is a little weird. Having the entire Canadian leadership, and I just gave you like a sampling, but a lot of the Alberta, Ontario, the leaders of the federal parties all weighed in. That's weird, right? And well, I'll explain. Hold on. Is it here? Yeah. I'll explain why it's bad here. It says, this person's saying, Brad Conroy said, Aaron O'Toole lost my vote. And this guy says, why? He's doing the right thing. And he says, no, he's not. Media can call the election all they want, but it's not decided as long as there's still count challenges. If Trump wins, which could still happen, this will hurt us. Our leaders should be impartial until it's definitively settled. Then by all means, congratulate. And I agree with that, right? Like, do what you're going to do, but it's a little premature to call the election now, and to have the leadership congratulate the presumptive winner according to the press. Here's the president of Mexico. He said, this is J. Michael Waller, and says, President of Mexico, who knows voter fraud when he sees it, says it's too soon to congratulate Biden. Mexican president says it's too soon to congratulate Biden. So that's interesting, right? That's interesting to note. It's too soon for some to call it. Ezra Levent says the Electoral College has not chosen the American president yet, but the media party has, and so have the Democrats, and that's enough for Canada's Justin Trudeau. This is foreign meddling, and I've been saying that for a little while. The Jagmeet Singh's election day screeching and shouting all about how Donald Trump doesn't have the moral, whatever. They take the moral high ground despite not behaving like they deserve it. So I love political songs, and I think political songs are like memes. And so this is great. I'm going to show you 38 seconds of this because this is just fantastic. I'm going to show you like the first verse and the hook. And the hook's great. Like this is a good song. You should go listen to it. And I think that stuff like this shows you what a lot of people think. And well, here we go.
When I went to sleep, Trump had the lead. How the hell we go from election day to election week? The posters got it wrong again. They must have been confused. But I tell ya about shit myself when I turn on the morning news. Cause they found ballots full of ballots at 3 a.m. All the way from Georgia to Michigan. They took the caps off of their Sharpies and they filled them fuckers in. All those pallets full of ballots, all for Joe Biden.
And the rest of it's just as good. Sorry, the language there, I apologize. So people have been talking about this. We're going to touch on Canada just ever so slightly. We're going to skim on Canada because we're going to go back to the United States, but then back to Canada. It's like a skipping stone today. Senators now discussing Bill S-209 at second reading in the Senate. And it's an act to amend the Canadian Election Act and the regulation adapting the Canadian Election Act for the purpose of a referendum. So they're looking at changing the voting age, lowering the voting age in Canada from 18 to 16. And I think that's a terrible, awful idea to even have a referendum on it. Kids are kids at 16 years old and should not be voting in full elections because they are not old enough and don't have the experience enough to weigh all of the very complex issues. And I mean, there are a lot of people who can't even adults who don't have the time or energy or interest to weigh all of that. And you would have a very engaged voter segment in 16-year-olds because they'd vote in schools and they'd vote how their teachers told them to, which is, again, just not appropriate at all. But the other part of this is, how would it be tallied? Here's an interesting, back to the United States. Tom Quiggin says, unfortunately, Canada is becoming a focus of U.S. election vote counting issues as miscalculated or misallocated votes become a factor. Dominion Software is owned by Canadian John Polis, who's hired a lobby company run by an aide to Nancy Pelosi, and he's also donated to the Clinton Foundation. And this segment goes through how this guy gains 600 votes or 500 whatever votes, while this guy loses about the same amount of votes in real time, and you can see it as this updates here. So you've got 662, 235, and 673, 948. This is going to update to 674 something or other, 75 something or other, and this will go back to 661. But you see the 662 here. I'll change it so it's updated that picture. But go watch this video for the 13 seconds to walk through because it's so fast you don't see it. This is what the Dominion software does. Hold on, I'll cue it up. Okay, so here it is after the update. After the updated results from the computer were updated up here, but not down here. So this guy's got 674, 508. This guy's got 661, 675. But before, you can see his old total here, 662, 235. Right? This is the Dominion. It's designed to take little, like, the Office Space plot, take a little bit, right? And then over a long time, you'll get a lot of money and nobody will miss it, right? It's supposed to take little chunks, little 500, 600, right? And take away from the Republican to give to the Democrat. So I don't know, but were it me, I would have been ready. Now, I would have been ready for this, but perhaps Trump is ready for this, right? Perhaps, maybe. Here's how this applies to Canada. Back to Canada, skipping stone back to Canada. This is rabble.ca reporting why electronic voting in the Ontario election is a mistake. A seismic shift will occur. This was from 2018. This was from June 4th, 2018. Okay, before the 2018 election. Maybe just after. Before, must have been before. A seismic shift will occur in Ontario politics on June 7th, regardless of which party wins the election. Electronic vote counting machines will be used across the province for the first time. Machines will scan voters' papers, ballots, and calculate the totals at each polling station that is equipped with them. 90% of the ballots will be counted this way. The rest will be counted by hand, as not all polling stations will have machines. When the polls close, off-site computers will add up the votes. On June 1st, CNBC News reported that the Progressive Conservatives wrote to Elections Ontario this week to flag several issues, including concerns about protection from hacking and others, and the certification of the vote counting machines. Elections Ontario Chief Administration Officer Deborah Danis was quoted as responding, "There is no possibility that the counts could not be fully corroborated. I would actually argue that the introduction of technology increases our accuracy." It doesn't. Okay? It doesn't. This is proof that it doesn't. Okay? Back to this. The major problems with the plan is that scrutineers appointed by the parties to watch for cheating will no longer be able to observe the count for 90% of the ballots, nor will they be permitted to object to any aspect of this automated count. Unfortunately, the government offered no public consultation about this switch before making it law in 2016, even though it's just as consequential as past proposals that warranted a referendum. So we are being dictated to, we do not have a choice, and the thing that we're being dictated to change the results of the US election potentially, right? In little bits, in little tiny bits. Here is an article from October 23rd, 2018, okay? After the Ontario election, online voting in 51 Ontario municipalities marred by Election Day system load issue. The system issue surfaced around 6 p.m. Eastern Time and lasted approximately 90 minutes, according to a statement from Dominion Voting Systems. The Canadian company said it wasn't aware of the technical difficulties which caused many online voting systems to slow down drastically or go down altogether until municipalities began flagging them. The load issue was documented, reviewed, and determined to be the result of a Toronto-based internet colocation provider placing an unauthorized limit on incoming voting traffic that was roughly 1/10 of the system's designed bandwidth, said the statement distributed by Kay Stitman, Dominion's Vice President of Government Affairs. Dominion regrets the challenge that our system load posed for both election officials and voters alike in Monday's elections. We want to assure Ontario voters that we will work to ensure this problem does not occur in future elections. The company, in its statement, did not identify the third-party provider that reportedly limited the system's bandwidth. I scroll down. While Dominion said the system glitches were resolved within an hour and a half, some municipalities reported that their issues began earlier and lasted longer. Kingston, for example, said officials realized their online voting system was down around 5:45 p.m. and it wasn't restored until after 8 p.m. The city's extended its voting hours until 9:15 p.m. on Monday in response. Meanwhile, the town of Woolwich reported stop-start activities, saying its online system first stopped accepting ballots around 6 p.m. Once Dominion began working on the issue, the system began accepting ballots again very slowly and then timed out again shortly after 6:30 p.m., a statement from the town said. So does that just, make you believe in your system? In your voting and the integrity of your system? And that was the 2018 provincial election, right? I don't have any examples of the 2019 election or anything to that effect. So as far as I know, right? But who knows? So there's a link to the article or to the videos here, and this is the source for where I got the ideas for those articles, just in case you're interested. National Post is reporting, and this is an opinion piece by Conrad Black. He says, Trump may be down, but he's certainly not out. As this is written, and this was written on which day? Yesterday, so November 7th, today is the 8th. As this is written, the winner, the United States presidential election is still uncertain. It is apparently down to Arizona, Georgia, Nevada, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. Joe Biden can win with any two of those states, and Donald Trump needs all but one, and Pennsylvania has to be among them. So Biden, at this point, is the provisional favorite before questions of judicial review are considered. The Republicans are not accused of any irregularities, and only such allegations are against the Democrats, mainly in states run by Democrats. U.S. federal elections are conducted by the state governments. There have been complaints of Republican scrutineers being prevented from seeing ballots, and the president has noted some unusually lopsided dumps of votes, including in Michigan and Wisconsin, states already presumed to have been won by Biden. All of these questions are going to have to be examined quickly and would be vulnerable to whole or partial judicial reversal. I scroll down. Whatever the result, there's a lot of speculation here talking about Kennedy and Nixon, and talking about Bush v. Gore. I think that there are potentially a lot of similarities. I don't know that this will. I don't know how this is going to play out. We'll have to see how the Supreme Court finds, or how the process that examines this, the audits and the recounts, go before you can really say, there's a potential here. So anything new coming today is speculation at best, in my opinion. But anyway, so that's what I wanted to make sure you understand. Back to this. Whatever the result, says Conrad Black, a number of conclusions have already emerged. President Trump's policies are generally approved in the country. He is running behind his party against an extraordinary, unprepossessing opponent, and the positive reaction of the financial market to the re-election of a Republican Senate and unexpected Republican gains in the House of Representatives reflect relief that the Democrats will not have the congressional votes to adopt what is, by American standards, the extreme socialist Democratic program, which was essentially independent socialist Senator Bernie Sanders' campaign program. So not that things are protected, but potentially, right? There's a firewall, however small, if this goes poorly for Trump. But anyway, back to this. He may appear beleaguered, but this battle is far from over. He has had the greatest impact on the country of any president since Reagan, and has shown the way forward for the Republicans. 4 years of Joe Biden and Kamala Harris would stoke up an enormous amount of nostalgia for Donald Trump. It might not be unrequited. If he wins, he will be better in his second term than in his first. If he retires, he will soon be fondly remembered, as American ex-presidents are, as a colorful former heavyweight champion. And if he wants to return, he can. He is almost imperishable, the more so because he has been the subject of such vile snobbery. In living memory, only Franklin Roosevelt, Dwight Eisenhower, and Ronald Reagan have had such a huge and fervent following. It's very interesting to watch. It really is. And who knows what's going to happen? 18 hours ago, Conrad Black says, motive, Trump is literally Hitler, means 80 million mail-in ballots, opportunity, excluding the GOP observers from counting rooms in key jurisdictions. The circumstantial case is a no-brainer. Now Trump's legal team needs to gather and present compelling evidence, or it's game over. So yeah, and do I think they've got it? Who knows? I don't. But here's just some of the evidence floating around Twitter. Mary Dudley was born in 1916 and used to live in Kalamazoo, Michigan, before she died at age 70 in 1987. She still applied for and received an absentee ballot on the same day in Michigan, 9/29 of 2020. Alamo Township received her absentee ballot on 10/20. So she voted. Very interesting. So people who passed away in 1987 are voting in the 2020 election. Is that normal? Moving in, and to finish off the show today, or the last couple of tabs on the show today, Aaron O'Toole. This is just 28 seconds, so I'll just play it. Hold on, here we go.
Announced a substantial increase in immigration levels by about 17%, 50,000 more than what was originally planned. In the Conservative Party, do you agree with that increase? Thank you for that question. We need more immigration in Canada. It is important for our economy and for the well-being of all Canadians. Last week, the government announced...
Very interesting that Mr. O'Toole is so for increased immigration. I don't know that that is actually what his intention was, right? Or not what his intention was, but what his base will support, right? It's certainly not popular. Well, I don't know where it's popular, but with the unemployment rate at that level, at the level that we've got, I don't think that should be the priority of the Conservative Party, but here we are, right? Almer, the state of emergency for Almer, right? Here we go. This is what happened in Almer after they declared a state of emergency on Saturday, and just a lot of people showed up. Good.
It's as far as you can see all the way down. I can't even get a video of it. It's solid cars.
You have to go
all the way down.
I think this is a good way to protest. Here is a very brief little summary. This is the all mortality, I believe, and he just digs into a bit of data. This is for NHS. This is for the UK, but it extrapolates. I think that it can be instructive for Canada as well.
NHS, we've got to protect the hospitals, but place of death hospital, instead of looking at all places of death, shows that we're having deaths below the normal rate. So then you have to say, well, where are those 674 deaths happening? Place of death, own home. 638 of those deaths are occurring at home. And one thing, I mean, I'd be interested in your opinion here, but I find it completely implausible that those deaths are coronavirus deaths and nobody's going to hospital. Clearly, people with other conditions are being prevented from going to hospital, whether by fear or by just simply refusal to treat them in order to keep the hospitals clear for coronavirus. But they're not coronavirus deaths.
But I just want to show you for Ireland, you can see here.
Sorry, microphone issues. And I don't usually maximize it, but I wanted just to see the charts. Interesting, right? Very interesting. And here's Dr. Kaur, and she says, for years, same academics, media now suddenly claiming to be concerned regarding welfare of people of Brampton have turned a blind eye to suffering of Brampton patients. Now they're distorting the truth and pushing for more catastrophic lockdowns and restrictions, harming people of Brampton. Please stop. Did you know that for years, pre-COVID, Brampton patients have been admitted to hospitals in other cities due to lack of beds, but ambulances have been diverted to other cities due to code gridlock that Brampton receives lowest per capita Ontario health funding. Lockdown restrictions are causing horrific harms, right? She's making the same point that these guys were making, right? And trying to use the data. It doesn't matter if it doesn't matter. The data doesn't matter. That's the fundamental point, right? Like the data doesn't matter. They're continuing to march forward with their lockdowns and their agenda. And if you question it, then you're wrong and or stupid and or must be a Nazi and or your friends must hate you or whatever. If you question it at all, and there will be bots that will jump out and talk to you and tell you, oh, blah, blah, all this stuff. It doesn't matter. That's where the data leads you, right? Like Guelph has 2 people in the hospital in the whole Wellington Dufferin unit, but they just upped our level to the yellow, which is increased fines, and which doesn't make sense, because if the point is to stop the transmission or whatever, increasing fines, does that usually work? Or like, what are we doing here? Are we replacing taxes? But anyway, the increased fines, and with only 2 people in the hospital and using cases to justify this. As you guys saw yesterday, I showed the Cam Guthrie thing, 22 cases, worse than it's been since April. Well, we're testing like by a whole lot more, right? Like by, what is it? At least 50, I can't remember. We were 5,000 back then, and now we're up to 45 or 50,000. So whatever that is, 10 times as much. And it's just not appropriate. And people being upset about 22 cases with the amount of tests we're getting, a lot of them could be attributed to false positives. That's fact. Sorry. Dr. Yaffe said it too. Here's John Tory. I talk a lot about Toronto, and the other week I said, I really should probably cool it. It's not as bad as I say it is, and blah, blah, blah it is. It's worse. I'm doubling down. Forget it. John Tory is tweeting, quote, 15 hours ago. It is an absolute tragedy that an innocent 12-year-old boy was shot in North York today while walking with his mom. It is infuriating and totally unacceptable that people continue to engage in brazen gun violence in our city and across Canada. You keep letting them out on bail. If you get arrested on gun crime, the guy's out the same day, right? People have been arrested the same day in Toronto for gun violence. Like, honestly, you can sit there and say, oh, we're trying, but you're not trying. Back to this. The gun violence threatens all our residents, and I condemn it in the strongest possible terms, as should we all. I've spoken to Toronto Police Chief, and he assures me officers are working to solve this case quickly and protect the community. Thank you to all the first responders who first rushed to the scene of this horrific shooting to help this young boy and those left traumatized by this callous act. I urge anyone who has information about this shooting to please help Toronto Police arrest those responsible so they will face the full extent of justice. Yeah, so they can get arrested and then let out on bail the same day to shoot up another family walking down the street. Toronto is ridiculous. Like, it did not used to be like that. I used to be able to, I was allowed, my dad grew up there, and I was allowed with my brother to go down the street to get candy when I was, I don't know, probably 8 or 9 years old, probably younger than that. And nobody was worried that we'd get shot. I wouldn't let my kids go down the street these days. And the street was Bayview. Like, it wasn't like a not busy street. Like, unbelievable, right? Unbelievable. Randy Hillier says, Ontario government overreach is clearer. Ontario budget increase indicates a 6.5% drop in GDP, employment down 5%, spending up 23 billion, federal government bailout 33 billion, and a deficit of 38 billion. We are now poor, dependent, and services are declining. Who will pay for it? You and I and our children and our grandchildren. And how do you stop? How do you turn the tide on this when you've got mayors and city councilors and everyone embracing whatever the public health people say? We can't ask for a second opinion for our public health experts. There is no pathway for repeal of the mandatory masks. Even in green, the only way to even talk about taking away any of the restrictions on our personal freedoms and liberties comes with a vaccine. Like, you have to have the vaccine in order to get these things back. No, these things are basic. These things you get because you're human. You don't get them when the government decides to give them back to you. It doesn't work that way, and the government needs to understand that. The businesses should open. They should ignore these government restrictions. Mayors should be standing up for their citizens and for the businesses in their city and saying, no, we will not comply. These numbers don't make sense. Why is it that why is it with 2 COVID patients in the hospital, and in all of the Wellington, all of the health area, the coverage area, Wellington Dufferin Health Unit. Why is it that 2 people in the hospital has us at the 85.9, right? Why is that true, right? Why? It doesn't make any sense, except that they're told that they have to be at 85.9% in order to continue surgeries and day treatments and all that other stuff, and anything above that, I don't know what they have to do, but this is a recent law. So it seems to me that that our leaders are not behaving in a way that is helpful, either in international diplomacy or domestic diplomacy. And it seems to me that we should not be entertaining the idea of having 16-year-olds vote. And it seems to me that we should not be using this Dominion voting system, as it also seems to me that it changes votes indiscriminately, or quite discriminately, depending on who's in control of the software, because it doesn't seem to be the people at the polling stations, as they needed to call people in from the Dominion service to be working on the election in real time. So that's concerning, right? Very, very, very concerning. And yeah, like I've been saying the last couple of days that I don't believe a lot of the things that are coming out, because I don't have any, there's no reason to believe them, right? Like when Cam Guthrie says it's worse than it's been since April. Well, Cam, we haven't had a death since, I think it's June or maybe July, but the last time it was less than 11, I can't remember. And we've had more opium deaths. Like, it changed from 13 to 14, and now we're at 15. So, like, this state of emergency, this everybody walking on eggshells, this mandatory masks everywhere, and cut-eye for people who are accessing legitimate exemptions, and they are legitimate exemptions. It's not appropriate, right? And again, I'm going to double down and say they've given me no reason to believe them, and so I don't believe them, right? I don't believe them. I don't believe Dominion. I don't believe the municipal government. I don't believe the provincial government, because they're not looking and not talking about the important pieces of data that should be driving the reopening of our economy. I can't believe that there's not a coherent counter movement to the lockdown other than people in Almer who were shut down by a state of emergency. Where's the Almer? There it is. Right? They're trying to shut this down due to a state of emergency. And we've got I like this parade. I like this. I think that we could do something with this. The parade, maybe everybody park at City Hall and honk. Do that for an hour. We want an end to this. I don't know. I don't know what we can do to express our displeasure with this any more than we can. And I said before, if they can beat Donald Trump, and I don't know that they've beaten Donald Trump, but if they can beat Donald Trump, then it's going to be very hard to mount any kind of resistance to this, because it'll be coming from all sides. If you thought it was bad in 2020, just wait if Trump loses in the courts or loses in the next phase of this, because the people who are pushing this will be emboldened and will push harder, a lot harder. So, there's a lot of things in play. There's a lot of things hanging in the balance of this, and I don't know which way it's going to fall. And I don't know. But as far as I know, courts don't run on Sundays. But maybe in this case, they should make a call and be like, hey guys, can you guys work today? We've got some questions that we'd like answered. Right? Litigation filed. Let's go. Anyway, regardless, we'll see. We'll have to wait and see, because there's nothing else to do, right? Like, you can't hurry it up. Even if the AP says it doesn't make it true, right? It doesn't make it true. There are things that have to happen. There are recounts, audits. These things take time. It's going to take time. That's just a fact. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out CanadaPoly.com. Check out CanadaReport.co. Check out SpeakingMoistly.co. And have a wonderful, wonderful